So many questions come to mind with a title like The Art of Teaching Mindfulness. You know, if you're a teacher, if there are teachers in the room, what's your role? What's the role to avoid? When you're teaching, what do you pay attention to? Is that different from being a student? Are there terrible errors to commit? What about the role of levity or presence in being a teacher? For us non-teachers, many of whom want to introduce partners or kids or friends to the practice, how do we do that well or do that very badly? And Jon's been a teacher. He's also taught many teachers and helped them become teachers. He's also had good teachers of his own. And so I'm very excited and curious to hear from Jon and to learn about this. So thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And just to say, Eric is a profound force on this planet in his own right. And I didn't make up this title. I mean, they just kind of give me assignments. So the first thing to say is that none of us are really capable of teaching mindfulness. So it's a very high bar. And I think it's important, actually, and this goes against the grain of, hello there. I'm going to keep my back to you most of the time, but feel the broadcast coming through the body, as Richard Heckler said. You know, it's like I feel it back there. Whatever we're calling this collective engagement, mindfulness or heartfulness or compassion or wisdom or an upgrade of wisdom. I'd take wisdom 1.0, you know, at this point on the planet. There's a paradox associated with it, and that's that it's infinitely available and close right now. And also simply the hardest work in the world for us human beings to get in touch with. Why? Because we're so in the habit of getting in our own way. And getting out of our own ways is a lot more non-trivial than it should be in some sense. If you saw the beautiful film that Brother David Steindl-Rast did on gratitude, it's not saying that there's anything more that you need to do. It's rather that we need to sort of get out of our own way and let the beauty that is us intersect with the beauty that is the entire world and how it manifests in the form of you and you and you and you and anybody who would come into your room as a teacher. Or maybe, and I use the word room really advisedly because in a sense, the universe is the room. Awareness is the room. And if you check, just attend to where the periphery or the boundary or the circumference of your own awareness is, I don't think you're going to find it. For all the talk of the body and, being embodied, one of the interesting properties of being human is that awareness is boundless. And the universe is also boundless. And we're a product not just of evolution, but of the evolution of the whole thing. So when it comes to teaching mindfulness, there's some fundamental questions, and I really appreciate, Eric, how you frame some of them. I'm not sure I'll touch on all of those different elements of it, but the spirit of it should really come through. And that is, first of all, really none of us are competent. And it's the hardest work in the world. At the same time that it's no problem at all. But we need to sort of go from a place where we're in our thinking and we're downloading a curriculum into other people that we've pre-thought and prefabricated and then doing it on people. And then it becomes a performance of a certain kind, which is how we do almost everything we do, and for good reason. I mean, you don't get a driver's license without learning how to actually drive the car. But getting a driver's license doesn't immunize you from having accidents. You have to be there inside the car, and aware and not looking behind you. So we have to ask a deep question about motivation, because if we're choosing to do something that's actually the hardest work in the world for us ourselves to do, never mind invite someone else to do, we have to do with a huge degree of humility and a huge degree of understanding that what we're really inviting is a kind of realization, a making real in our own moment-to-moment existence unfolding, that we're already okay, that we're already whole, which is the root meaning of the word health and healing and wholeness and even H-O-L-Y, whole. We're already complete. And probably none of us think that most of the time. We always think, well, he doesn't know me, and we start to catalog all the things that are wrong with us. And I like to say, you're perfect exactly as you are, including all the imperfections that your legalistic lawyer-like mind is going to now say, well, he doesn't know me because, and here's the laundry list of things that I need to improve upon before I can really. So sometimes we have to really ask the motivation. What is your motivation if you want to teach mindfulness? How many of you do teach mindfulness in one way or another? Fantastic. The reason I'm saying this is not sort of to say, no, we can't do this, but to say, no, we can't do this because the bar is so high to actually live what it is that you're teaching, as opposed to having it come out of your head and out of your thinking mind. And no one can do that regulation for you, including your, whoever you learned it from. So that transmission energy, you're right, I studied with a lot of different people and I watched them very carefully. And some of the people that I studied with, they were criminals. And I learned more maybe from the way they abused the privilege of being a teacher and of being a Dharma teacher. And they were basically unethical or dishonest in one way or another. I learned probably more from them than I learned from the great ones, who live it, because you see what not to do. And you see the cost of the betrayal of yourself, basically, and the deep wisdom that comes to us because we didn't make it up. I mean, and mindfulness, as you know, is like just part of the elemental inheritance of being human. But there is a long, very ancient and venerable tradition of practice within different traditions. Primarily, the sort of clearest articulation of it is in the Buddhist tradition. Okay. That said, it doesn't mean that any of you have to be Buddhists in order to teach mindfulness. And just to make it clear, I am not a Buddhist, okay, although people project onto me that I must be. But I prefer to simply identify, to the degree that I want to identify at all, with human. Okay? And not an ism and not a kind of, because they tend to create dualisms like us and them. Buddhists and the non-Buddhists, but Buddhism is about non-duality. So, and the Buddha, it could be argued, was himself not a Buddhist. He was an investigator. He was an experimentalist. He was a yogi. He was a lot of different things, and he brought all of these wisdom traditions together in a way that actually clarified it and then made the curriculum coextensive with life itself in the timeless moment we call now. So the first principle would be of teaching mindfulness is, are you living it? And I would say that that's the real practice. Because otherwise, there's a certain kind of artificial way, and I'm not knocking it, because that's how we all begin. It's like, okay, now I'm going to become a meditator. And now I better be a good meditator. And so I'm going to strive to be whatever it is that I think of as the best way to do this. And that's all fantastic. But there's another element to this, and that is that if you're already whole and there's no improving on you, then actually, there's no separation between you and the Buddha, but you don't know everything that the Buddha knew. So that's where the humility comes in. And so how do you take what you could call the instrumental, what is required, to say, like sit in a posture that embodies dignity? That's a nice, helpful way to, get people to settle. But you could do it lying down or standing on your head or standing on one leg for that matter. And at the same time, there's no place to go, nothing to do, nothing to attain, to quote the Heart Sutra. No place to go, nothing to do, nothing to attain. And the trouble with Americans, how many of you are from different countries, not America, not the U.S.? Well, lucky you. That's a joke. But in America, we're always trying to get someplace else. We're always trying to get to some better place. And they tell you, we've been here before. There's this kind of cyclical way in which everything rises and passes away. And it's not like greed, hatred, and delusion just emerged in our last election, for instance. No, it's been going on forever, prehistory. I mean, and you all know this. I mean, and what's not said, what the narrative isn't, and then it changes to the narrative that is, Whether it's the Me Too movement or there's the Black Lives Matter movement, it's like, women have always known, stuff that now is all in the front of the newspaper, but before it was like, truly oppressive in a certain kind of way, but in a way that didn't lead to clarity or waking up until now, and the same with the school shootings and everything else. But this, you can't talk about the school shootings apart from like the hangings in the South, for centuries, and the slavery and the genocide. What's that have to do with mindfulness? Only everything, because it has to do with awareness of the whole. Otherwise, you're in some little cubbyhole or kind of bubble is the popular term now, where you're in your own reality and now you're trying to get everybody else to be in your reality, which means you don't trust the larger whole. So you're already off in a certain way. So trying to teach mindfulness is very different from actually embodying it in your own life and then letting your life actually do the teaching. And then the actual guidance will come out of your own direct experience, and it won't be imitative. Okay? And it won't be prescriptive, and it won't be trying to teach people to get into some special mindful state. Okay? There's no mindful state. If you want to, it's not about attaining a particular something. It's about not getting caught in how much we are thinking all the time and then creating a reality based on thought, so that so your students, they're already aware. If you're teaching in schools, how many of you teach in the schools, K through 12, something like that? Okay, and more and more teachers are bringing mindfulness into the school system. And I don't think until recently most of the school systems have been, it's coming from the superintendents or the parents. It's coming from the teachers because they can't teach in the classroom. I mean, because the kids are so stressed and they're coming to school with all sorts of issues and problems that used to be taken care of by family, and now it's not so much being taken care of entirely by the family. So the shorthand would be, how do you teach kids to tune their instrument of learning when they're coming into the classroom in the morning totally stressed out? And maybe having experienced violence or hunger already that morning, not even had breakfast. And then there's the whole thing with the school shootings. It's like, how many school shootings does it take to have you think that it could happen in our school this morning? And so a kind of very sort of big cloud hanging over a place that was supposed to be safe and sacrosanct, where the children could actually learn. So that's a lot that the teachers are carrying. So can you actually embody the sense that you're not trying to get the kids to be a special way, but to recognize that the way they already are is insanely special? It's also true for the breath. Let's just, for a moment, because, by the way, we haven't really dropped into silence. But I hope it's clear to you that this is itself part of the meditation practice. This conversation that we're having where you're actually listening and I'm actually speaking, it's as much practice as anything else. We're collectively dropping in to wakefulness, and then I'm pointing towards things that you already know. And what I'm trying to do is affirm them and reinforce the significance of you taking responsibility. If you hope to aspire to be a mindfulness teacher and really transmit the deep essence of this, that you have to live it 24/7 without the have to. Okay? That it's a love affair. It took me a long time. I've been having formal meditation practice now for over 50 years, and it took me 30 or 40 to actually realize that when I take my seat in the morning, it's a radical act of love. Just to stop, just to wake up, a little bit more than when we jump out of bed, which we're already zoning along on autopilot because we're late. You realize? We never have enough time. We're always behind. So taking your seat is a radical act of both sanity and love. And I use it metaphorically and literally. Taking your seat, yes. Sitting practice or in any embodied posture, very important. Silence, extremely important element of it. And when you see that in the K through 12 class of a whole bunch of kids sitting in silence and being the knowing of a wakefulness, it's incredibly moving. And especially even, a lot of those kids may be on the spectrum in one way or another, or have ADD or ADHD. And I've witnessed classrooms in some of the most stressed public school systems in the country. It's like staggering to watch, to feel the kids be still and know what they're doing. And when you plant those seeds in childhood, you get a different kind of adult because they're exercising a certain kind of muscle, what Richard Heckler was talking about, but embodied practice after practice. But you have to know what practice is, because otherwise you're rehearsing for some performance, and that's not what practice means in the meditative traditions. It means being fully present now. Because there's no performance, this is it. And it's not a performance, it's life unfolding. So if you can maintain that perspective of honesty and integrity and sort of your own inner ethic for not creating harm out of your own fear of not doing a good enough job, or not really being qualified, or not being Buddhist enough, or whatever your mind will produce, they'll say, like, I haven't sat enough long retreats. That's true. But then don't beat yourself up about it. Just go and sit the retreats and see that this is a lifetime's engagement. Okay? It's not like you have to get it all done the next year. And if you maintain that kind of honesty and integrity, even if you don't know everything that you think you know, you'll know enough. Because what your students will feel, whether they're kids or adults, will be your presence, your authenticity, your openness, your not knowing everything. not knowing is so important. Awareness of what we know is important, but the not knowing is always bigger than the knowing, and so the awareness is big enough to hold it all. And knowing what you know you don't know, it's like, really? It sounds weird, but it's like, that's weird. And then you see you're a unique embodiment of wisdom. Now, not 30 years from now. That's the challenge. And there's a certain kind of urgency, as I'm suggesting to it. So the world actually needs you to do what you want to do. I'm guessing because you came to this particular workshop that you care. Trust that. Trust that. Let life be your meditation teacher. Yes, there are all sorts of people and places to go where you can sort of really exercise that muscle more deeply and under high conditions of, retreat and focus and so forth. Fewer distractions. At least you'll think that until you get there. And then say, just because I'm on retreat doesn't mean I have left my head at home. No, and your head is carrying the entire universe. So it's like, oh my God, are you in there too? Just when I'm trying to have some rest or repose. And you don't need to shut it off. See, that's the biggest mistake that we make, is teaching people to shut off your thinking, or that thinking is bad. It's beautiful. It's just that awareness is equally beautiful, and we never get any training in it. And we train in awareness by paying attention. Now, every teacher wants their students to pay attention. And, before the invention of the internet and the web, hardly any students were paying attention, even when they had notebooks and no iPhones and laptops. Now, people don't even come to class because they just download it all from them. So there's a certain way in which the analog you needs to meet the analog them and make it interesting enough so that they don't actually want to come, attend class and love it. So that then it becomes infectious. It's a love affair, but it's not narcissistic. It's a love affair with life, with what the movie was pointing to, with the beauty of and the preciousness and the miracle of not just this day, but this day embraced in the embodiment that we call you, whoever you are. And that's the invitation. And then it's like, it's a conceit in a sense to think that we are practicing mindfulness. Once you get into it and begin to taste the beauty of dropping in that way, it's more like the practice is doing you. It's revealing to you how to get out of your own way, exactly what we were talking about at the beginning. And then there's no wrong, just as there's no one right way to practice. So how many of you would say that you have a regular, daily, or almost daily formal meditation practice to support what you're doing? Turn around. I want you to all look around, okay? Because it's like 80% of the hands. Raise them up high so we can really, whoa. This would not have happened even 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. The world is changing. And while none of us, in the sort of instrumental line, we say, well, really it should be the Dalai Lama who's doing all this. But the Dalai Lama, he has limited bandwidth, for God's sake. He needs help. And then you can, whoever your guru of the moment is, that let whoever is on the main stage do it. No, this has to be a kind of distributive engagement, the love affair on the part of all of us whose hearts beat, who care, who breathe, who are human, and who really care about more than just maximizing my own whatever I think I need in order to be happy, because you've probably had the experience where as soon as you get what you think you need to be happy, you're not happy anymore because there's something else that you need to get. So there's no end to that kind of acquisitive mind, and it's the same for meditation. People get into meditation, they get acquisitive about stages of enlightenment. And you say, well, what is enlightenment? I don't know. Well, but you want it. That's what you want most. And, it's like, well, why don't you try just being the awareness of not knowing? Then you're already here. And then, as the Heart Sutra says, no place to go, nothing to do, nothing to attain. And paradoxically, the next line in the Heart Sutra is, the Bodhisattva, you, attains anuttara anyak sambodhi, supreme perfect enlightenment. Okay? But it's not what you think. It's already the essence of who you are. The Buddhists would say Buddha nature. So can you see the Buddha nature in your students? Because you're there for that transmission. And however you got it, you are a conduit. And yet, you shape it in your own beautiful, particular ways. And as I said, none of us really are, competent to do it. But when the house is on fire, you try to do what you can, and the house is definitely on fire. So I think first I'm going to ask Eric if you want to ask any more of those particular questions if I didn't cover them, because I like to have a lot of dialogue. And so if there's one egregious thing that I've left out in terms of the few questions that you asked.
Yeah, many.
That's what I thought.
I think I think one question that some people may have is, if you're not a teacher and you have a great experience with meditation, again, how to introduce it to people close to you, and maybe how not to introduce it to people close to you as you wanna share it.
Okay.
And
let's start with that.
Yeah.
Okay. My recommendation, and I'm a sort of tough guy when it comes to this kind of thing, is don't do that. Just live it. Be what it is that you want to teach, and let the rest take care of itself. I think that it's really important not to become a kind of proselytizer of mindfulness, or like, my children, you would really be, better off if you were more mindful. Yeah, and the kids, they're looking at you and they see the entire full-dimensional, three-dimensional, 360-degree, you're telling me how I should be, but you're not actually practicing it yourself. So the most important thing is be it, whatever the it is. The irony is you already are it, but we keep forgetting because we're so self-distracting and we're so preoccupied and lost in thought. So you don't even have to squelch the thinking, just be aware that you're lost, and all of a sudden the awareness not lost anymore. And here's a thumbnail thing that you can always use. Is your awareness, let's say, when you're depressed. Does anybody ever get depressed? When you are depressed, often it's for good reason. But you can ask yourself, is your awareness of your depression depressed? Check it out. Maybe you could live more in the awareness rather than in the depression, which is really a thought disorder of depressive rumination, where one thought takes you down, deeper than the other. Is your awareness of anxiety? Does anybody ever get stressed or anxious in this crowd? Okay. Well, when you're anxious, can you hold your own anxiety and awareness with a degree of self-compassion? And ask yourself, investigate, look through the microscope or telescope. Is my awareness of my anxiety at all anxious? Can I feel the tension in my body? But the body is much more than simply the tension. And in the actual bringing of awareness to it, it can actually dispel, like touching a soap bubble. Goes poof. Again, it's a muscle. You exercise it. You work it. You work with, not against, the resistance of like not wanting to do it or not being able to remember in time and then getting in your own way and then having to apologize. It's all practice. It's all practice. So that's what I would say. And it doesn't mean that you can't teach your kids to meditate, but it's far better to have them learn from somebody else at school rather than from you, because you're too attached to the outcome. Okay? They know it already, so it's like they're the real Zen masters in the house, not you. And if you actually let them be the teachers to a certain degree, then I think things will just go much more optimally. Another one? And then we've got 10 minutes, so I want to open it up.
Yeah, there's a mic in the middle of the room. So people have, for the people that do have
how
questions.
you're going to get to that mic, I don't know. But just shout out the questions.
Yeah, it's a small enough room. If people want to shout, stand up.
Yeah, please,
raise
go
a
ahead.
hand, shout out a question.
The cultivation of mindfulness, of moment-to-moment non-judgmental awareness, is really, it sounds very simple, but it's actually just about the hardest work in the world for human beings, because we get so caught up in our conditioned states of mind. And when we begin to cultivate awareness, it's really important to bring a certain attitudinal approach to it so that we're not trying to force anything to happen or sit in a kind of rigid posture or attain some special state that will, that we sort of think, that's what it is. I'll be enlightened, or I'll just be permanently wise, or I'll be this, or I'll be that. The problem isn't actually with the enlightenment or the permanently wise or anything like that. The problem is with the personal pronouns, I, me, and mine. And they are very, very problematic because who we think we are and who we actually are very different. And there's a huge separation. Who we think we are is very, very small compared to who we actually are. And so when we are cultivating mindfulness in MBSR or with people, we encourage a certain kind of attitude that's brought to the formal and informal practices that you can keep in mind through your daily life as well. And these attitudes, there are 7 of them that I put in Full Catastrophe Living when I was writing it, because it really felt like if you start to cultivate acceptance, if you start to cultivate non-striving, if you start to cultivate letting go or letting be, if you start to cultivate trust and patience, that these qualities can be cultivated in everyday life with your children, with your parents, with your partner or spouse, with your colleagues at work. And so it's a way of reinforcing and deepening the actual formal and informal meditation practices. Beginner's mind is a lovely orientation to bring to the present moment. This moment is always fresh, always new. We've never been in this one before. And yet we bring so many ideas and attitudes and desires to every moment that we can't actually allow ourselves much of the time to see things as if for the first time. Imagine bringing awareness to your children with beginner's mind so that you actually see them not through your lenses of ideas and opinions about your children, but fresh, the miracle of them, the amazing nature of them. So this is something that we could bring to any moment. It has the virtue of, sometimes we're so expert that our minds are just full of, our expertise, but it leaves us without any realm for novelty or new possibilities. In the mind of the expert, they say there are very few possibilities. But in the beginner's mind, there are infinite possibilities because we come to it fresh. So it's a kind of a discipline to try to bring beginner's mind to every aspect of your life and not be so stuck in our ideas and opinions about how much we like this or don't like that, or what the outcome of a particular situation might be. And when we come to things with this freshness, it actually, again, has tremendous transformative qualities associated with it. And when you bring it to other people and you're open and spacious with them and don't insist that they be the way they were half an hour ago or 2 years ago or whatever it is, they feel seen and recognized and met in a way that they might not otherwise experience. That benefits them, and it also benefits us. Non-judging is a very important element of mindfulness practice, and in fact is part of my working definition of mindfulness, which is the awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And the non-judgmentally is the real challenge, because when you start to pay attention to what's on your mind, you very rapidly discover that we have ideas and opinions about everything, just about everything. And we're always judging things in terms of, I like that, I don't like that, I want that, I don't want that, this is good, that's bad. And it's like a steady stream of judging. So when we speak of mindfulness as being non-judgmental awareness, it doesn't mean that there won't be judgments. It means that you will be aware of how judgmental we actually are, and then not judge the judging. And when we relate to it in that kind of a way, then we begin to see that our judging is very often black and white. It's either this or that, good or bad, like, dislike, want, don't want. And we get imprisoned by that kind of view. But being non-judgmental doesn't mean that all of a sudden you get stupid and think, well, I'm not going to be judgmental, so I'll just walk out in the street in front of an oncoming truck. What difference does it make? No, it means that we will cultivate discernment. This is the capacity to see what's actually unfolding, but not to judge it, but to recognize it and to understand it in relationship to our experience. So when we speak about non-judgmental awareness, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about a very fine degree of discernment, of clarity, of wisdom, of understanding the interconnections between things, and at the same time noticing the tendency to judge quite quickly, like, don't like, want, don't want, and to recognize that that actually creates a kind of veil or a filter in front of our eyes that doesn't allow us to see things as they are, but to only see them through the lenses of our own ideas and opinions and likes and dislikes, which is practically blinding to us. So this is a wonderful discipline, the cultivation of awareness of judging and the cultivation of being gently non-judgmental, or not judging the judging that we do discover in ourselves. And over days, weeks, months, and years, we can begin to actually find a way to navigate through our judging in such a way that it no longer dominates our lives in quite the same way. And we recognize when it comes up that it's actually, in some sense, toxic. And the more we challenge it, and the more we rest in discernment and in pure awareness, the more we can live life authentically in the present moment without getting caught by our own habits of mind, unhealthy, if you will, habits of mind. Acceptance is a very active process. There's nothing passive about it. It's not passive resignation, but it's an active recognition that things are actually the way they are. Sometimes they're not the way we want them to be. So acceptance doesn't mean that we can't work to change the world or to change circumstances of one kind or another. But it means that unless we accept things as they are, we will try to force things to be as they are not. And that can create an enormous amount of difficulty. If we recognize the actuality of things, then we have the potential to apply wisdom in that situation to actually shift our own relationship to what is occurring in ways that might be profoundly healing and transformative. But without acceptance of one's situation, then it's very difficult to know where to stand. And without knowing where to stand, it's very difficult to take the first step. So some things are very hard to accept, like when you experience pain, for instance, and in your body, and you don't know what it's from. It's very, very difficult to accept it because we want to know what it's coming from. And if we don't have any answer for what is causing the pain, then it can be very, very difficult to accept it. But what we find working with chronic pain patients is that before you can actually work with pain and suffering, you need to actually put out the welcome mat for it and accept it as it is, because whatever has been done medically that could be done has been done, and you're still living with a certain degree of pain. What our people with chronic pain who come to our clinic experience is that there's a lot of different ways to actually work with pain, but the first step is to actually put out the welcome mat for it, which is very hard to do when you're suffering. But it's actually a gateway into freedom from suffering. So that's one of the most powerful ways in which acceptance can be brought to bear on healing and transforming one's life. It is a very, very powerful factor and is a very, very powerful attitude in the cultivation of mindfulness. Letting go, we could think of as the opposite of clinging or grasping. There's a certain way in which when we want something, we grasp it, we cling to it, even if it's an idea. And very often we get very fixated in that kind of a way. Letting go is reminding us that it's possible to actually not get involved in grasping and clinging to what we want and trying to push away what it is that we don't want. Because it's inevitable that things will arise that are unpleasant, and we'll want to push those away, and that other things will arise and they'll be pleasant, and we'll want to hold on to them. So letting go really means letting be. It means allowing things to be as they are, and not be too caught up in having to have them be a certain way when the evidence is they already are not that way. So therefore not forcing. It of course goes with not striving as well, allowing things to be as they are. In India, they sometimes use a particular way of trapping monkeys, where they take a coconut and they cut a small hole in one end, and then they tie the coconut with a wire to the base of the tree. And they put a banana inside the coconut, and then the monkeys come down from the trees and they put the hand in the coconut. But the hole is crafted so that if you grasp the banana, you can't get your hand out of the hole. The fist is too big. So you have to let go of the banana to actually release your hand. So the monkeys don't want to let go, and that's how they're trapped. So letting go, or letting things be as they are, means allowing the recognition that when you are caught by your own desire, by your own attachment to things being a certain way, that's painful, but that the letting go is actually the doorway to freedom. And it's something that you don't do once. It's something that you practice over and over and over again, moment by moment by moment. Every time, excuse me, every time you catch yourself clinging to something, you remind yourself it's possible to just let it be and to just let it go. The breath can remind us of that too, because every time we take a deep, because the breath can remind us of that, because every time we take a breath in, we have to let it go. Because otherwise there's no room for the next breath. So it's a natural part of life to receive and then release. Receive and then let go. Trust is a wonderful attitude to cultivate because there are so many different aspects of our lives that we're kind of strangers to. And as we cultivate intimacy with ourselves, we also cultivate a deep sense of trustworthiness and trust. And a good place to start is with ourselves and with our body. So can we actually come to trust the natural wisdom of the body and how beautifully the body supports our life? We very often take it totally for granted until something untoward happens. But noticing that, in general, we can trust that the breath will take care of itself. Luckily, because if we had to worry about the breath, we would die a long time ago. So we trust that the breath comes in. We trust that the breath goes out. We trust that the ears can actually hear. We trust that the eyes will actually see. We trust that our organs take care of all of the metabolism and biology of being alive. There's a wisdom to the body that can remind us that we ourselves are trustworthy. And if there are so many beautiful things and so complex that are unfolding so beautifully in the body, well, why should the mind be any different? Why should the heart be any different? So the more we can learn to bring trust to ourselves, the more we can actually learn to bring trust to our relationships and to other people and to nature and to the various challenges that we face in life, so that we can actually reside in our own confidence in our own ability to meet whatever comes towards us in ways that can be effective. It's all based on trusting ourselves. And that's something that can be cultivated by practice. So every time we don't trust ourselves, we can bring awareness to it and remind ourselves that maybe this is a good opportunity to shift from really feeling like we're not able to trust something to actually trusting it when it's in ourselves. When it involves other people, it gets a little bit more complicated because you don't want to trust naively, but other wisdom factors will help us to take care of that. I don't know if you've noticed this, but a lot of times I find that I'm impatient to get to the next important thing happening. And so missing the present moment because of my impatience. So to actually intentionally cultivate patience and a kind of recognition that things unfold in their own way, and that in some profound way things cannot be hurried. So when we're always rushing to get someplace else, the byproduct of that is that we're never where we actually are, which is a tremendous sadness and a tremendous loss. Sometimes we're impatient with other people, sometimes we're impatient at work, sometimes we're impatient to get things done. But this wisdom of patience is something that is also profoundly healing and restorative, and is akin to recognizing, as some children don't, when they, for instance, try to make the butterfly come out before its time from the chrysalis, that certain things can't be hurried, but things do unfold in their own time. So if we actually learn to be patient with ourselves, then we're inhabiting the present moment in ways that have great comfort and great profundity of both acceptance and wisdom associated with them. In the cultivation of meditative awareness or mindful awareness, we take the unusual position for Westerners to actually not try to get anywhere else. This is what we call non-striving or even non-doing, to actually allow things to be held in awareness without having to operate on them, without having to make anything happen or try to experience some special state of either relaxation or well-being or anything, but to simply be with the unfolding of life from moment to moment without any agenda whatsoever. It turns out this is tremendously healing, tremendously restorative for us too, because we have so many agendas and we're always on the way to some better moment in the future or trying to escape from something in the past. But to actually be in a place where we're practicing non-striving and non-doing, where we just let things be as they are, is, as I said, tremendously nurturing and healing. Not easy to do because we have so many different, so many different items on our to-do list. So the longer your to-do list, the longer we should give ourselves some time to practice non-doing altogether and non-striving, realizing that whatever is already here is good enough. Even if it's not pleasant in this moment, it's enough. We don't need to try to escape from it or fix it or make anything happen. It's a tremendous discipline, a tremendous attitude to bring to life. And it doesn't mean you won't get things done. On the contrary, it means that whatever doing you do will wind up coming out of being, and therefore much greater wisdom and much greater appropriateness to the situation. Now, people often ask me, well, why did you stop at 7? And I say, I don't know. I mean, I just stopped at 7, but I left out a few that I really probably am going to put in the next edition. And one of them would be gratitude. To bring gratitude to the present moment because, well, say, for one thing, just we're alive. We take that so much for granted. A little gratitude, wow, the body's working. I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. My eyes work, my feet work. If, the liver is working. The kidneys are working. I mean, we take so much for granted. So in that sense, the 7 attitudes are a way to remind us of that. And gratitude really should be in that list. Another one would be generosity. A sense of how powerful it is when you give yourself over to life. And that you give other people what would make them happy. Not for yourself, not so that you can pat yourself on the back and say, I am a generous person, but because it gives joy to others. It enhances interconnectedness. you demonstrate that you care and that you are actually giving some time and attention and thought to someone other than yourself. So both gratitude and generosity, I think, should be included in that list. I could go on, but I think that 9 would be enough. It's hard to keep more than 9 things in mind at any one time. And of course, they're all completely interconnected, so you don't have to actually remember any of it. If you are practicing non-striving, then everything else is embedded in that. Acceptance is embedded in that. Generosity is embedded in that. Gratitude is embedded in that. Trust is embedded in that, and so forth. So any one of these attitudes is a door into all of them, and that's why they really are forming, in some sense, just different ways of understanding what mindfulness is really about. And I probably should say that in all Asian languages, the word for mind and the word for heart are the same word. So in English, when you hear the word mindfulness, if you're not hearing the word heartfulness, you're really not understanding it fully. And so those attitudes are really part of the heartfulness element of it. Whether it's seeing things as they actually are, the most profound thing you can see is the interconnectedness of all things. As soon as you see that, then emotions like anger, for instance, are very different because, or fear for that matter, are really transformed in some way because of our interconnectedness. So it's a way of seeing other people as they really are and not necessarily seeing them as threats, and then being able to find some domain of commonality that comes out of the heart, that comes out of the head, that comes out of the body, that comes out of life as one complete